Pues nuevamente tomo el micrófono para pedirles que ocupen su lugar. Vamos a dar inicio a esta participación del doctor Ashleigh Molloy, que le pido en este momento que me acompañe. Ash, please come with me. Sí, gracias.
Okay. Yep.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Bueno, yo deseo destacar en esta mañana la presencia del cónsul de Canadá en Monterrey, que ha venido con una participación especial en el marco de este Congreso Internacional, la educación inclusiva, un horizonte de posibilidades. Para mí es un placer, señor cónsul, darle la bienvenida. François Lafont, por favor, vamos a expresarle un fuerte aplauso. El señor Lafont es un cónsul, un ciudadano canadiense muy activo en nuestra comunidad, siempre estableciendo vínculos entre nuestros dos países, entre México y Canadá, y para nosotros nos llena de orgullo que tenga una oportunidad y este espacio que lo comparta con nosotros. Señor cónsul, es usted bienvenido.
Buenos días a todos. Realmente es un placer y un honor de estar aquí entre ustedes. El doctor Molloy es uno de los más destacados canadienses en el campo de la educación. Recibió una medalla de la reina Isabel este año por su excelencia en el campo. Y entonces me gustaría reconocer su gran talento y sus competencias en el tema. Segundo, yo vengo aquí como mensajero del gobierno de Canadá para entregar al director Humberto Rodríguez un reconocimiento por haber invitado al doctor Molloy a esta conferencia. Y entonces yo quiero dejar una carta firmada por miembros del Parlamento aquí agradeciendo la participación del doctor Molloy en este evento. Muchas gracias.
Ojalá hubiera algún fotógrafo que venga y tome una foto de este evento tan memorable, porque el reconocimiento del gobierno canadiense al Congreso y a la normal de especialización me parece bastante trascendente. Wow, un fotógrafo.
Sí, por favor. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Okay, thank you very much.
Bueno, ahora quisiera presentar al doctor Ash Molloy. Es psicólogo del desarrollo en educación especial, en especial énfasis en diversidad e inclusión educativa. Recibió la Orden de Ontario de parte del gobierno por su liderazgo en educación y humanidades. Fue designado líder educativo del año por el Concilio de Niños Excepcionales en el 2007. En el 2008 recibió el premio Princeton en reconocimiento a su liderazgo global en la categoría educativa. En el 2009 recibió un premio por su trayectoria de vida de parte de la Asociación Educativa de Padres Católicos en Ontario. El doctor Ash Es consultor y conferencista internacional sobre temas educativos enfocados a la atención a la diversidad y a la inclusión. Es un renombrado presentador de radio y televisión, dando conferencias por el mundo. Ha dado cursos en universidades de Turquía, Finlandia, Oslo, Dublín. Ha estado en conferencias en Washington y les tengo una buena noticia, en Monterrey también. Fue ponente en el Congreso Mundial de Síndrome de Down, celebrado en Vancouver, Canadá, en el 2006. Participa activamente con su experiencia en el sistema escolar de Toronto en lo referente a cursos de educación especial. Es un gran promotor de la interculturalidad y el respeto de las lenguas comunitarias. El doctor Molloy se ha involucrado profundamente con la comunidad de las personas con discapacidad. Ha servido a la comunidad como presidente de la división de la Asociación de Síndrome Down de Toronto, el representante canadiense en el Congreso Internacional de Síndrome de Down. También es miembro de la Coalición por la Inclusión Educativa en Ontario. Ha sido presidente del Concilio de Niños Excepcionales en Ontario y ha dado distintos cursos y conferencias a estudiantes en la Universidad de York. Ha participado con trabajo humanitario en países tan diversos como Ghana, Malawi, Filipinas, Ecuador y México, y ha recibido numerosos premios de parte de grupos y organizaciones nacionales y líderes políticos por su trabajo en Asia, Europa y América. Además, como ustedes ven, es un digno representante de Canadá como un país progresista, como un país innovador en el tema de la educación inclusiva. Vamos a darle un fuerte aplauso al doctor Ashleigh Molloy.
Muchas gracias. Bendiciones a todos. Hola, Sinaloa. Yo amo México. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. One more time. If you're happy and you know it, stamp your foot. If you're happy and you know it, stamp your foot. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, stamp your foot. Bienvenidos de Canadá. Bienvenue du Canada. Welcome and greetings from my nation of Canada. I thank once again, our consul from Canada, Monsieur François Lafond, who was kind enough to come here because it is very, very important that we have an opportunity granted here at this conference to let you know that Canada believes in inclusion. So, let's get started with the very first slide. I'm going to talk about global inclusion, and I'm looking at some of the places that I have been. So a couple of things here is to validate the role of teachers as educators for all students, which my colleagues, both Chris and Mian, have already talked about. So again, it's kind of a little bit of an extension. To understand that inclusion is recognized and supported by the United Nations, which Chris referred to, and to explore inclusive practices globally through the lens of neurodiversity. So there's a new science, neurodiversity, that is really beginning to emerge as it relates to teaching special education, basically how the brain works. So I'm going to do a couple of things. Look at inclusion from the words in video of both students and educators. And then I'm also going to have a look at a little bit of neurodiversity, which is for short form is brain-based learning, what we're learning about how to work with students with what we call disabilities or better exceptionalities. So I was pleased to be at the United Nations in March of last year to officially sign on behalf of Canada the UN Charter recognizing that March the 21st has been officially proclaimed as World Down Syndrome Day by the United Nations. I think that's a great step forward. So, UNESCO, we know about Children for All, and again, the charter that is focusing or trying to make sure that all children get educated. That's the work that the United Nations and UNESCO with Chris talking about that this morning. So again, we're all kind of building on each other's. The goal will be achieved when all nations recognize that the universal right to education extends to individuals with disabilities. So again, that's the worldwide global journey that all of us are on in terms of trying to get inclusion. I'm just going to briefly refer to this, but I like the sign. Canada is a proud signatory of the UNCRPD, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. And I think that that speaks to Canada as a nation that welcomes people from around the world and certainly seeks in its society to ensure that everybody is entitled to and has the opportunity to be fully engaged citizens in our nation, contributing citizens to our nation. We value diversity. That means the differences of all sorts coming together to work as one nation, one society that is built on mutual respect. Inclusion, there's different meanings, and again, as Mian said, this is not the only meaning. There are different meanings. This is just one of many. Inviting all children to learn together in classrooms creates an environment where they learn to work effectively with those different from themselves, where learning increases for all, and where a sense of belonging is pervasive. That's from a group called the Whole School Consortium. There's some nice pictures I have, if you see, from a previous Congreso, and you can see two of the children I was very privileged to meet. So what does an inclusive classroom look like? Well, it should be a welcoming environment for students and for parents. Accommodating, clearly demonstrated. How are you going to, as a teacher, address the needs of each of your students in your classroom? Making a variety of resources available that reflect diversity. So when we look at the curriculum, it's important that we see visuals of people who are disabled so that we understand that they are part of our society. Focus on student-centered learning. Learning is all where the student is and where we want to take him or her in our teaching. Schoolwork from all learners on display. To ensure that all students have a chance to put up their work once it is the best that they can do. There's a particular story I will just tell you. My daughter Lindsay, as some of you know, was born with Down syndrome, and she's a delight, and she's probably the inspiration for me doing what I do. Because despite of all the education I have got, the most important lessons are taught to me by people with intellectual disabilities, and certainly first and foremost is my daughter Lindsay in that. Basically, the teachers were looking at putting up artwork on the bulletin board. So Lindsay, I was at parent night and I went to look and I looked at this, and the thing I asked the teacher is this the best work that Lindsay can do? Because if it isn't, I don't want it up there because she has Down syndrome. I want it up there because it is the best work that she can do. So it's very important that we make the critical distinction when we're working with students of disabilities, that it is not from a point of view of care or pity. What we need to do is look at empowerment to help our students to be the best they can be. Flexibility in programming to meet individual needs. Okay, an inclusive teacher embraces changes. Change is happening all the time, continually. And finally, supportive of peer cooperative learning. You know, students who work with their fellow colleagues in class learn a lot. They learn about important qualities such as compassion. They also learn to realize that the world that they're going to live in is made up of differences. Part of that differences is students with special needs. And finally, collaboration among team members. Jeff Struley is a friend of mine from Los Angeles, and he talks about, again, something that both Mian and Christine have talked about this morning. It says the color of the journey is different from all of us. So Mexico is on the path of inclusion, as Canada is, as the United States, Australia, Hong Kong, and all the other countries. But we're all at different points on that journey. So it's not going to look the same in each country because we are all at a different stage of pursuing inclusion. Okay.
Not that. Our education system is at a critical juncture, and we are called upon to ensure that every student is on the path to success?
Okay, that was the Minister of Education for Bermuda. Okay, they are committed to ensure that every student, okay, is on the path to success. Every student, all students. That includes students with special needs. So I'm just going to having a look at some of the...
I'm interviewing Aoife, who is my host here at this school, and she is a special education teacher, and this particular school location works with students who are designated as being autistic. So I'm just asking her a couple of questions because I've spent already half a day here with the students, and it's a wonderful brand new facility here in Turku, Finland.
This is Finland.
So the first question I'm going to ask Eva is, what is something in your career as a teacher here working with students with autism, what is something that you find rewarding as a teacher? That's the first question.
Well, the moments in my career would be moments where a child with no way of communication learns to communicate even the smallest things. The first time they point to a bread or point to the water glass or something like that. The first little steps are usually the most rewarding. Of course, everyday life, because I think it's a very rewarding thing in our line of work that we get to not only teach subjects, but teach about life, to show life and show things that people do for fun or things like that, and just everyday life with them. Yeah.
So the kind of...
Okay, that's Eva from Finland.
What do you... Can
this
you
is
tell
from
me
Norway.
What what kind of... Like when you've chosen this life of teaching, what do you think is special about being a teacher?
Oh, well, I like that when I notice that these kids has learned something, especially when here in special education it sometimes happens very slowly.
Yes.
And when I have been with some children with year, and then and I think and memorize fast, and I think that what it was a year ago and what it is now. That's when it comes.
It makes you feel really
Yes,
good. You've
yes,
actually achieved something.
So, as you can see, both teachers talking about moving their students forward and how rewarding it is when little steps of improvement is so important to them. So again, these are teachers. Notice the commonality. You are in special education because you want to make a difference in the lives of students who sometimes need extra help. Okay, I don't know if you've ever tried that, but we talk about disabilities. If you put me in a wheelchair and tried to do that, I would certainly have significant problems. So again, how do we look at it? In America and other countries, internationally,